Okay, so good evening and welcome to the Town of Sykesville Mayor and Town Council Meeting. Today is Monday, January 8th, 2024. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order precisely at 7:04, and first we will begin this meeting as we begin all things in this chamber with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll follow that with a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that brief moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. All right, so this is the time in our agenda where we ask if anyone is here to make public comment, and that's normally just at the beginning of the meetings. If you're here to specifically comment during the public hearing of the ordinance that we're hoping to introduce this evening, then that doesn't mean now. But if there's anyone else that wants to speak at the beginning of the meeting unrelated to that matter, there is?
There's one.
Awesome.
It's Natalia Okshuski. So close.
Please come on up to the podium. Thank you, Oksana. And if you can allow me about 20 seconds to read this before you comment.
Sure.
As I mentioned, the first order of business today is public comments. And as I've been informed that there was one person to make public comment, I wanted to let you know that you have 3 minutes to do so. Please note that general public comments are made at the beginning of the council meetings are meant for council's consideration and its future determination of whether or not any action needs to be taken on the matter. The council is not permitted to hold a discussion at this time on any new business that has not been previously posted in the formal agenda for tonight's meeting, though should any of the council members have either follow-up questions or comments for the commenter, of course that will be permitted during this evening's back and forth. So thank you, and please tell us again your name and your street address.
Sure, Natalia Okshuski. I live on Herman Way. I haven't done this before, but
Sure.
I've tried emails and the HOA and stuff, so I know there are other members of the Warfield community that have the same concerns. So we're trying to get information on our trash collection. Mm-hmm. So you and I spoke when you were running. You were very gung-ho to fix it for us, and it's been a long time. We're not getting anything resolved. Our new budget has trash collection in it, thousands of dollars. So we're trying to figure out when this is going to be resolved, what's been done, and how is it going to be equitable? Because I've been paying for 4 years. So someone who came 2 months ago, just dispersing something to the HOA is really not equitable. So that's what a lot of the homeowners are trying to figure out.
Okay, I appreciate your questions and coming before us this evening, Oksana. We actually have, just as recently as our last town council meeting, passed a resolution to reimburse the actual HOA, not the individual homeowners. That is in keeping with, and I'll expand on the word reimburse, but that is in keeping with what we've been doing for multiple years with the only other HOA community in town, which is the Raincliff community. The idea is that a rebate will be provided beginning immediately to both, as again, it's already been going on with Raincliff, but to Parkside immediately in a sum of greater than $19,000. That goes directly to the HOA because it is the HOA that's paying for trash collection for you all. The trash collection, I should say solid waste collection because it's also recycling, is being completed by a third party that your HOA actually signed a contract with that lasts for 5 years. So that 5 years contract is something that is not easily broken according to the parties that signed that contract. So at this point, until that contract runs out with that third party, we will reimburse the HOA the amount that's pretty much equal to the amount of taxes that are taken to provide that service to you all.
But the taxes were taken from the homeowners, not the HOA.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, I've been paying for 4 years.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
How is it equitable to do that?
Well, so there was no way for the town to provide you with those services while the community itself was still being under operation by the property association, not the homeowners association. So until the homeowners association became an actual thing, an actual entity, we we weren't able to provide you with that service. And so, it's a learning curve for this is mayor link versus the campaignee link, knowing the rules and regulations with respect to HOAs and trash collection. But do rest assured that the rebates are equitable with respect to what it is that is coming out of your taxes that is going toward that service. And then when and I'm glad you brought this up, because I've spoken to many individuals about this, and as recently as last week had another meeting with staff and another one of your neighbors who's been there since 2020 as well. And the information is being shared between the town, our staff, and your HOA, but and also happening here in the public forum. So I would just encourage, that those questions that you might have related to this, or anything for that matter, certainly reach out to staff directly. Chances are it's already been discussed and worked out. So when the trash collection contract that you all have right now, when the 5 years are up, at that point we'll get to revisit that.
And when is that from?
I don't know, it's at least 3 years from now, if not four.
It basically started in 2023.
Yeah, so 4 years.
It just started? We've
Yes.
been in HOA already over a year.
For a year. Yeah, they basically signed it when the HOA.
And then the
was
city is
started.
going to take over.
After that, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, it's still not equitable because the HOA gets the money and we've been paying for it. So,
but I understand that, but it's impossible for us to work it out any other way. It's just not feasible from an administrative perspective to try to figure out what each individual homeowner has invested in the time that they've been here and how long
so
they've
if
been here.
homeowners could get that documentation
No.
to the city, so why not if they do the legwork?
So now we're approaching with the. I entertained your question, Ms. Oksana.
No, but you had said that it's too much work. So if someone came forward with it, could that not?
No, it's because we would need to do it across the board with all 145 townhomes and the taxpayers in each townhome, and
Okay.
and determining their tenure there and how much they have specifically paid out, and then how much of that has been paid out towards this particular service. I mean, do understand that your taxes that are going to the town are for more than tax collection,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so those other services and amenities that the town provides by virtue of your taxes are still very equitably being provided. And I wish there were a very much shorter and more simplistic answer and a simplistic way to address your concerns. But again, it wasn't until 2023 that the HOA board was formed, and at which time that entity made the decision to sign a 5-year contract.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
you've given me some good information that I can pursue with the rest of the homeowners.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. It's my pleasure. Okay, so that moves us to our first item on the consent agenda, or on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
thank you so much, sir. That
Second.
includes the minutes from December 11th. I assume everyone's reviewed those. So the motion is first made by Councilman Grassley, seconded by Councilman, I almost said Dyer, Councilman Schofield, all in favor of approving the minutes from December 11th, 2023. Please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and I believe we have one abstention,
Correct, abstaining.
and that is because,
Not present.
thank you, sir. Okay, here we go with new business. First item is to consider, discuss, act on petition for zoning map amendment, 7306 Springfield Avenue. So just as a matter of clarification, because the agenda's a little unorthodox this evening, the way that all of these items kind of line up. So I just want to say a few things about the agenda. This first item, again, which is to consider, discuss, and act on petition for zoning map amendment, is directly related to the following agenda item, but each will require an independent motion and a related subsequent action or vote. So although each of the first two new business agenda items will be voted upon separately, we will certainly be discussing the two of them kind of in tandem, and I didn't want that to cause any confusion for either my council or the public. The second item is actually an intro of an ordinance that will require a public hearing, which brings us to our third agenda item, which is the opening of that public hearing. So we'll begin with the first and second, kind of in tandem here. And I'll turn actually, I have one other thing to say about that first item. The town received a petition for a zoning map amendment for the property located at 7306 Springfield Avenue in September of this past year. The request was referred to the town's planning commission as required by the current zoning code for report and recommendation. The planning commission met on several occasions to discuss the request for rezoning the parcel in question from business local to business general. The planning commission ultimately denied that request, and this evening the staff is recommending that we reject the petition for the map amendment by the owners of 7306 Springfield Avenue and to accept the alternate proposed by the Sykesville Planning Commission in cooperation with the petitioners, and that is for a text amendment to the local business district zoning code, allowing for a service garage to become a conditional use. And I'll turn it over to Joe now for any further background.
No, yeah, you actually covered most of that. So again, back in September, this petition was referred to Planning Commission. Planning Commission met several times to look at several different aspects of exactly how best to handle that particular parcel. It is a rather unique parcel with its own unique history. I would refer to it as spot zoned already, so again, trying to evaluate exactly how best to use that particular parcel is rather difficult. So again, the Planning Commission did go through several meetings discussing different options and decided that rezoning it from business local to business general was not the best path forward, and that just making a service garage a conditional use within that business local district would be a more equitable solution than rezoning it altogether. So they did put together that report recommendation that was in everybody's packet. Staff does agree with the proposal that's listed in there. So we are asking council to reject the petition that was submitted for the map amendment and instead proceed with the introduction of the zoning text amendment, which would add the service garage as a conditional use in the business local district. And just so everybody's aware, a conditional use would require a hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals. They would actually look at to make sure that that particular use that's being asked for is, I guess, being put to use in the best way possible for that particular district. And then only after the Board of Zoning Appeals takes action on it would then a site plan be able to come back before Planning Commission to address any particular site issues for that. And I do want to say too that this entire process actually started much longer ago than just this past September. It actually started with, I guess, a request to open a service garage at that particular location. I want to say it was late 2022, maybe October. To which staff basically said it had lost its non-conforming use. So it started a Board of Zoning Appeals petition right there, basically appealing the decision of the zoning administrator, or me. And so we started down that process, and while at the hearing, it was pretty much determined that a better way to go would be to ask for this zoning change and ultimately now text amendment. So given the facts that came out during that Board of Zoning Appeals process, it was the decision was made by me because the property owner had a tenant ready to go in that particular area. That we said, if you wanted to use that building for, let's just call it minor uses that were associated with what that structure was built for, basically service garage, that you could go ahead and do that while this new petition was then pending. Now, we didn't expect it to take a year. And we certainly didn't expect the intensity of the use to be what it was over the last several months. I do know that operation has ceased, but I wanted everybody to be clear that moving forward, should we decide to go down this route, that when the permit is requested, that any future use of that structure is going to have to go through the actual process. And you're not going to be able to use that building how it exists today. We are going to have to go through a site plan process, and there will have to be site improvements that are done there before the business can actually open and officially be advertised as a functioning business. So I wanted to make that clear before we open the public hearing. I don't want anybody to think that it's just going to open back up the way it had been over the last several months. Like I said, staff is supportive of this new direction based on the meetings with the Planning Commission. I do know the property owners and their representatives are here tonight to also speak on this particular path. But we are recommending that we reject the zoning map amendment petition, and then that council does move forward with the approval, or the introduction, I'm sorry, of the text amendment.
Thank you. And for the edification of the public, as far as a site plan approval process is concerned, in this particular situation or particular parcel, those things might include parking, it might include screening.
Correct.
And it might include sight lines, and of course, sight lines that would affect pedestrian and vehicular safety. Okay. So at this point, you were going to say something.
Well, just if
Yeah,
you want to
please.
give the applicant the opportunity to.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely, please, and thank you. So I guess that's where we will begin, and I will ask the applicant, or at least their legal representation, to join us here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Kelly Miller, 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, and I still have a froggy voice from the Christmas holiday, so forgive me. I'm going to try to keep it together for this meeting. So I appreciate Mr. Cosentini's kind of introduction and overlay of everything. It's my understanding that because Planning Commission favorably recommended on the text amendment, that for purposes of tonight we will not be discussing the rezoning, and we are effectively rejecting, or the proposal is to reject that application, which signifies that we're not really talking about it, and that instead tonight's focus is on the text amendment. So I know that they're separate agenda items,
Yes.
so I don't plan to go into the details of the rezoning petition because, as Mr. Cosentini said, we've been working together collaboratively on the text amendment. So I am here tonight to talk about that more, but I will hold off until we get to that portion of the agenda unless there are any questions at this point in time.
Well, I mean, now would be a good time as ever.
Okay.
I know we haven't introduced the ordinance yet, and we normally do hold off on discussing those things until after the ordinance is actually introduced, but given the fact that I think any and all information from staff and or yourself as the applicant's legal counsel, it would probably inform the public comment portion of things that I will open immediately after opening the ordinance, or introducing the ordinance. So go ahead and talk, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just briefly introduce the concept of the text amendment that's before you tonight. As most of you are probably aware, the Joys, I have with me Dan and Tom Joy sitting right here. They are the owners of the property, and they're the second generation ownership of this property. Their father owned it previously, and prior to his ownership, he worked at the property. So their family has a lengthy history of using and now owning this property, and they can speak to that during the public hearing. But as you're aware, they began the BZA process prior to my involvement and representation, and that then led them to submit a petition for a rezoning request. Through conversations with Planning Commission, it became apparent the Planning Commission was more favorable of a text amendment to the BL zone that allows for these service garages. I believe that staff noted in the staff report that there are potentially 2 or so other uses that this could also benefit in addition to the Joy property. And so that was all discussed at the Planning Commission, and it was Planning Commission's favorable recommendation unanimously that this be added as a conditional use to the BL zone. We did explain at Planning Commission and request that Planning Commission consider this be a principal permitted use, not service garages across the board, but service garages limited in size to 3 bays or less or 2,000 square feet, because that would allow the Joys to go straight into a site plan process for this property that fits their use and some others. And we felt it was appropriate because that really defines the intensity of a use in many ways, the size of the use, and the amount of cars and public that such a use can service is really defined by its size and the amount of bays. So that was presented to Planning Commission. Planning Commission felt most favorable that this should just be included as a conditional use across the board, service garages. So that's just kind of a very brief background on the conversations that occurred. There were a lot of questions about the site, and as Mr. Cosentini pointed out, and I believe Mayor Link also pointed out, this will have to go through a site plan process, and we are well aware that parking, screening, all of those sorts of components will have to be addressed and will be part of the subject of conversation through the site plan process. So we stayed focused, I think, pretty well at Planning Commission on the idea of the text amendment itself, and not because the text amendment will apply across the board, as you all know, to the entire town, not just this property. And so any property-specific elements would be discussed if and when this goes to Board of Zoning Appeals and or further through the site plan process. So that's a very just general overlay. I will be happy to comment during public comment, and I know we have some people from the community here as well, so I'm sure they will also comment during the public hearing. But I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any about the process that we've gone through thus far.
I will start on my left if there's anyone for questions for Kelly.
No, I do not at this time.
Thank you.
I do not have any other questions.
Thank you.
Not at this time.
So I have a question for Joe,
Sure, we can do that.
and for you, timing wise. So you said when they first came and requested the first use, you said no, but you said they could use it conditionally. Like, I'd like to know the timing of when it was supposed to be operational and not. So those dates are what I'm asking.
Well, again, so I want to say it was October is when the Board of Zoning Appeals, the original Board of Zoning Appeals meeting was held. And it was shortly thereafter that we said, if you want to use the building while it's going through this petition process. And again, we didn't mean you can use the building as you can open up your business. It was if you want to move equipment in, work on a car, somewhat, something that wasn't going to disrupt the neighborhood. Because again, that's what the building is a garage. So if you wanted to use it like that, then fine. No, it wouldn't be, I guess, a hindrance from a zoning standpoint. Obviously, that use kind of intensified, or there was just a miscommunication. And like I said, I think that since then the use has ceased. But
When did you ask them to stop completely?
well, there were several communications along the way, but I don't have specific dates.
Okay, Councilman Grassley?
No questions.
No, I want to hear from the public at this point. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I don't have any questions for you either, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. I would just like to briefly clarify that as well, because Joe and I have had many conversations about the use too. And I do think that generally there was a misunderstanding about the use and when it was asked to stop, in the sense that the Joys felt like it had not been open to the public. It was not an advertised place of business. It was being used by one person without being open to the public, and they felt like that kind of differentiated the use. They understand. We've talked about it. I've explained it to them, and we've talked since, and that's why the use has ceased at this point in time as we continue through this process. But just, and they'll go into the history during the public hearing just a bit so that you have a picture of it, but they both are into cars personally and have been since their father. So they never questioned the ability to continue using this until that initial zoning, I guess, BZA
But they're not suggesting
request.
that they were just having their friends' cars in there and it wasn't a business.
No,
The other cars were public cars.
No, I'm not
They were
suggesting that they were
okay.
all their cars. No. I'm just saying that it was not
I just want to
a
clarify.
website
that-
saying, please come here, our hours are 9 to 5. That's more what I meant, not that it was all their personal vehicles.
But it was a
in there.
business that was operating
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, council member. And thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Sure. Let me find my place here. All right, so before moving solidly, because I actually do have a few things to say that don't require questions of staff, and I assume there might be some comments here this evening that again will inform public comment. So before we move solidly into the next agenda item, which is to introduce the ordinance 24-01, are there any further questions for staff regarding the Planning Commission's recommendations to reject the zoning map zoning map amendment?
So I don't have questions, but I do have two comments because I was, I'm the liaison with the planning commission. One of the main reasons for why I had issues with business general is that we don't have any business general any other place in our town. And so by having this one location be business general, it would have been the first business general location in our entire community. And there were some permitted uses and conditional uses as part of business general that I didn't feel fell within the sort of the charm of what we're trying to build within Sykesville. And I can elaborate on that if we need to, but I did in the planning commission discussions that were open for the public. The other thing that I thought was a salient point in reference to this property was how long the property's been there. It's been there since 1917, and it's been part of the community for a really long time. And so as the Planning Commission was trying to come up with a reasonable solution moving forward and why the recommendation was where it was, I think we took a lot into account with the history of the property over the last 100 years plus, and wanting to be favorable to our businesses in our town. So I'll just stop there.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I also just clarify?
Sure.
There, in the map that we got, there are 3 properties that the Joys own, and we are only talking about the first property, not the place behind where the storage stuff is, and not the railroad
That's correct.
space. Okay. So this wouldn't change the zoning behind the building or to the side of it.
Correct. Well, actually, we're not changing the zoning at all, but.
The
Wouldn't change
text,
the
but
text,
the
yeah.
property we're talking about is not all 3 of those properties.
It's
So when
just the
we're,
one on the corner.
okay.
Is there a specific parcel number that we can refer to going forward?
It's there.
It's hard to tell from the map, but
Parcel number 4087.
thanks.
It just says P1.
Yeah.
So, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
For the, should we reject?
Yeah, we can do, that was gonna be
First,
next. I
okay.
was going to ask if there was a motion for that, if we were done sort of going back and
You know
forth
I'd like
about.
to make a motion.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll make a motion to reject the petition for zoning map amendment as submitted by the owners of 7306 Springfield Avenue.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilman Grassley, and thank you, Councilman Schofield. Is there any need for further discussion regarding that motion? All right, so we'll take a vote. All in favor of rejecting the, scrolling back up here, rejecting the petition for zoning map amendment as submitted by the owners of 7306 Springfield Avenue, please raise your hand and signify yes by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, so that motion has passed unanimously. And then that brings us to our next item of new business in full, to consider, discuss, act on the introduction of ordinance number 2024-01, an ordinance of the mayor and town council of the town of Sykesville, amending the code of the town of Sykesville, chapter 180, zoning article 10, B-L, local business district, section 180-62, conditional uses. We'll probably say that 3 more times, so buckle up. No worries. Bear in mind that we are looking to merely introduce this ordinance this evening and then open and hold a public hearing on it. At this point, though, it's because it's a bit unorthodox for us, as we've already begun to discuss this topic. In the form of discussing the PC's recommendations, I propose we get a motion on the table to introduce the ordinance and then continue our discussion and a Q&A as needed before we open up the public hearing. So is there a motion to put forward?
Want to do it? You're on the planning commission.
Sure. So I move to approve the introduction of ordinance 2024-01, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Sykesville amending the code of the town of Sykesville, chapter 180 zoning, article 10 BL, local business district, 180-62 conditional uses.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have the motion made by Councilman Schofield and seconded this evening by Councilwoman Grassley. Before I call for a vote, let's continue with questions and any discussion and debate that the council might want to have. And again, I realize that this is just for the introduction of the ordinance. That said, I will not be here on the 22nd when we will likely take action on this. I will be just getting home from vacation. So I want to express where I stand on this matter with respect to the ordinance itself. I'm not opposed to opening or introducing the ordinance. We need to do that in order to go through this process, and I think it's the right thing to do. But we can have as robust of a conversation amongst the council this evening as we'd like, because my plan is to continue this conversation and keep the open hearing open once we open it this evening until the conclusion of our action at the supposedly the following meeting on the 22nd of January. So that's the motion on the table, and we'll come back for a vote here when we're ready. Okay? So I'll begin. I am very anxious to hear from the property owners and from the business owners, and if it's the intention for for both to speak this evening. I am first and foremost a member of the community, and actually a member of the neighborhood in which this certain parcel is. And as a neighbor, it's been discussed amongst neighbors that the greatest concern related, and my concern related to an ordinance that would that would most certainly affect more than this property. It will affect two other existing businesses that are also currently conducting business as a conditional use in their locations. And so it would be nice to have, and we should consider this amendment to the text so that it would bring those two existing businesses into conformity with the zoning code. That said, I have been talking about this with staff and with members of the council, this particular ordinance that has not yet been fully introduced for months and months and months. And that is because we've been talking about the use in general of the actual property. And I'm disheartened by the way that things did shake out. And I will be considering the use of the property to this point when making my ultimate decision regarding the acceptance of the ordinance, the passing of the ordinance. But it's hard for me to assume that a business that is operating without a business license that we've ever been made aware of, whether or not, and we can speak to that later, and I will ask that question directly. It's disheartening to me to think that an entity is conducting business within on a property that is being done without a shingle being hung, without a business license in place, without a name of a business for a community to be able to research a business license, and without a business license to be known of, it's hard for us to know if other like Maryland Department of the Environment and those types of regulations are being met, or are even being scrutinized, or being held accountable to. And so those are the types of things that cause me pause. And it doesn't make me judge or think less of the individuals as human beings or members of the community, but it does cause me pause. And it's something that I'm quite sure all the members at the table here will have in their forethoughts or in their foreminds when considering this particular ordinance. So I do have other questions and other things I'd like, and hopefully will come up as a result of your presentations and your comments this evening. Does the council have anything else they'd like to mention this evening?
I have a question concerning the text amendment change. It would be throughout the community or throughout the town, and currently we do have some businesses operating as service garages.
Well, it's just the business local district, so
Yes.
just in those areas in town.
Okay,
And yes, there are 2 other service garages operating within the business local district today.
and how are they zoned?
It's business local.
Okay. Are they
they're considered non-conforming.
Okay, so with this amendment change, it would bring everybody that does this business within conformity?
Correct.
Okay.
That's currently doing business.
Yes.
Yes.
And would we take a look at their businesses to make sure? Or are they already, with this amendment change, would they already be in compliance?
They're already in compliance.
Okay.
So I guess just for the public, if we can explain that.
Mhm.
Like, how do we have two garages operating and then this one couldn't, just
Right.
the timing, so everyone's on the same page?
So again, anytime there's a business that's currently operating, whether if there's a change in a particular zone and there's already a business operating there, then that business can continue to operate. Now, there's a standard within our code that basically says if that use goes away for 6 months or greater, you lose your non-conforming status. You can't reopen that business in that location anymore. So all of these businesses have been in operation and operating without a break, unlike this.
So this issue is just the break.
Correct.
And the break's been how long?
I don't know for sure, but I know it's been several years.
And that basically happened when if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, when the gas pumps were removed, because then.
Well, when the gas pumps were removed was when it became a non-conforming use. Now, when that business ceased to operate, I'm not sure the date
Right.
on that. I just know it hadn't been operating for several years.
Right. Thank you.
I recall during my term here that those gas tanks were removed. Who paid for that?
I don't know.
Okay.
The property
The
owner.
property, okay. I know that they were done, but I wasn't quite sure who paid for that.
At recommendation from the town,
Gotcha, thank you.
under very direct scrutiny from the Maryland Department of
Yes.
Environment.
Yes,
Sure.
For sure.
So I think I want to hold off on my comments until after public comment.
Sure, and everybody's free to change their minds when public's making comments. We can. I know oftentimes in public hearings we are made to feel as though we can't have a dialogue, but certainly it is an opportunity to pursue a question with someone who has a comment to expand upon. You know, we can talk about
Well,
that.
and I guess I would just say, I think, so I'm also in the neighborhood, and we met when I was out on a walk, and I said hi. So I think I guess I would just like to acknowledge it's a very emotional issue because it's a really small town and everyone, like they say at the end of the day, kind of all issues are local. So, everybody has known your family, they knew your father, they loved your father. I don't think any of what is going on or what's being discussed is at all related to any of that. I think for me, being on the council but also being in the town, I think that's where I struggle because your father was very well loved. There's a lot of history in that building. There's, and in that space. And so much has changed around you since 1917, in terms of just the use of what I think about sometimes, and I know this was talked a little bit in the Planning Commission, of the sidewalks and the amount of foot traffic that we have now, just in, related to the middle school, the overcrowding at the middle school, the amount of renovations that have been done at Miller Cooper Park, and the volumes. And so I know that has also raised concerns. And so I guess I just want to acknowledge that I know it's emotional, and we want to make sure that everybody's safe, but also that people can do business in the town. And how do we kind of balance all of that?
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, did you have anything?
Just a
Yes.
quick question for Ms. Miller. The property is still titled to Thomas and Ruth Joy, is that right? Per the
Yes.
tax records? Okay.
Yes, Thomas has passed. That
I
was their
understand that.
father, and so Ruth is the owner,
Okay.
and the boys and their sister all own it together. It just hasn't been, the deed hasn't changed.
That was my question, because
Yeah,
it's still
yes.
just listed with them as the deed. So when we
Yes,
talk about
so it's
ownership.
really four of them because it's their mother, their sister, and then the two of them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Councilman Keenan. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so there's a motion on the table. Is there any for further conversation? If not, hearing none, I should say, then let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the introduction of ordinance 2024-01, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Sykesville, amending the code of the town of Sykesville, chapter 180, zoning, article 10, BL, local business district, section 180-62, conditional uses, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
I think that's everyone. Any opposed? Okay, so with that, the motion is unanimously approved and the ordinance is introduced. All right, that brings us to our fourth item on the agenda, our public hearing regarding, I will say it because I have to, ordinance number 2024-01, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Sykesville, amending the code of the town of Sykesville, chapter 180, zoning, article 10, B-L, local business district, section 180-62, conditional uses. Okay, is there a motion to open the public hearing for that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Councilman Keenan with the motion to open the public hearing and Councilman Schofield with the second. All in favor of opening the public hearing for ordinance number 2024-01, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
No, but one piece of discussion, I don't think that Councilman Keenan wanted me to say it again, so thank you.
I wasn't even going to let it, so that's great. Thank you. We're all in favor of not saying it again. So here we are. The public hearing is now open. And as I mentioned, I will be proposing to keep it open beyond this evening. So do we want to just go down the list, or is it because the people are seated in different ways? Like, do you want the property owners to speak first? Is that what you guys would like? It's up to you.
I don't know if you want that or not.
Any and all?
In all honesty, I think it might make sense for them to follow up at the end, because
Okay.
then they can address any lingering questions.
That sounds
anybody
great.
has.
And it
That
gives
sounds
us more
great.
time to be even
Thank
more
you.
nervous. So-
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry.
Thanks, Kelly.
Don't be
Sorry.
nervous.
Sorry.
Don't
No, there's no need.
I didn't know we were gonna be on TV too. I just
Going in order might not make sense because of the way people are seated, but it's up to you guys. I'm not the one stumbling over everyone.
Why don't we try?
You go first? Yeah.
Call
I
him.
think,
Jane Mergler would like to go first.
And she was first on the list.
Oh, excellent. And she was first on the list. Hello, Jane. If you can formally introduce yourself at the microphone and provide your street address, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Jane Mergler, and I live at 763 Central Avenue, just about 300 feet from the facility that we're speaking of. What I'd like to comment on has to do with the conditional use of the property as you're considering. And as you're setting those conditions, I hope that you'll take my comments into consideration. I respect that the facility was there since 1917, but I am also concerned about the years of neglect that the facility has been subject to. I moved from Ellicott City to Sykesville in 2014, and up until recently, the facility was neglected. Although the guys did periodically cut the lawn, etc. But the neighbors went and picked up trash and commented on all the graffiti that was being subjected to the building. So it was a building that has not been well taken care of in all these years. But now, suddenly, there's an opportunity and appropriately to make some money, and let's do that. Let's allow something so that these gentlemen can make something out of the property they own. But, that being said, this is not a neighborhood garage that they're opening. This is a garage that has customers from all over the area in Maryland. Some of the customers, from what I've observed, have out-of-state plates. And some of the customers whose cars are there don't even have license plates. So it's not a local garage. Keep that in mind when we're bending rules in order to allow usage of this facility. I'd also like to state that a lot has changed over the years. The neighborhood is a residential community, and I'm concerned that with all the houses and then the middle school, then the fine job that the town did with Cooper's Park, that now we're introducing what will become an active service garage. To me, that's light industry. And to me, that's not compatible with the residential nature of this community. And it is a gateway. Springfield Road, or Springfield Avenue, is a gateway into our little downtown. And it just doesn't have the kind of introduction to our little downtown, historic as it is, that I think we want to portray. With Cooper Park so close, I wonder why we can't have something there on this postage size property, postage stamp size property, that's more compatible with Cooper Park. And finally, as I've mentioned in earlier notes to the people involved in this decision, having stood there and helped the kids cross the lane into the middle school, I've noticed that our line of sight is obstructed by the many cars that were parked in and around the facility. It's not only a danger to the people trying to pull out from Central Avenue onto Springfield, because it is a curve, but it's a problem with the kids trying to safely make their way to the point where we're going to be able to manage the traffic so they can cross safely. And that concludes my comments. I really have concerns about this being a bad fit for the residential area. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to hear these comments from both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Jill Simpson.
You mean Jill? You know the drill?
Jill Singleton, 7321 Springfield Avenue.
Thank you.
I am here just with one particular comment, and that's about a sidewalk. The area in front of the garage and in front of the other parcel, which is adjacent to it, is the only part of Springfield Avenue that doesn't have a sidewalk. I live 4 houses down on the other side of the street and walk in that area frequently. And it's not a easy walk along there. And of course, I'm not the only one. I frequently see many people going up the sidewalk, often pushing strollers or with dogs, and they get to that portion, and it's just a difficult area to navigate without a sidewalk. It's a lot of loose gravel, and it's just difficult. Also, of course, the school is right there, and there really needs to be a sidewalk for those school kids. So it seems to me a no-brainer that one of the conditions, if this is approved, would that there must be a sidewalk in front of that area, finishing up the sidewalk on Springfield Avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, would it be appropriate to speak to that right now with respect to SHA's
We
work?
can. I know sidewalks at that location are proposed as part of that improvement that's going on along Springfield. I don't know specifically if they've talked to you about where exactly those sidewalks would be.
What's that?
We haven't received any return phone calls. We've received one message and we've tried to
Okay.
reach out.
But delineating ingress and egress of that lot can certainly be figured out with what's going on Springfield now.
Yes, because that actually remains one of my, I know the council has discussed this, it remains one of our collective concerns that with the sidewalk expected to be put in there as part of the plan of part of the current plan for improvements on Springfield, that will take away a point of ingress and egress to your lot. So it's something to be aware of, and we'll go on from there. Who's next?
Marie Miller.
Hi, Marie.
Hello. I live at 7313 Springfield Avenue.
Okay.
I've lived in Sykesville since 1991. We know the Joys. We've enjoyed having the garage there, quite frankly. I can't tell you how many flat tires and different things have happened to me. And they've been so helpful with, at the time I was obviously much younger with little children in an emergency situation. So, I think it's also important, since we moved to Sykesville, the historic aspect of the town and the different entities. I know a gas station isn't glamorous, but it has a lot of history, and I think that that should be considered, as well as all the other historic buildings that have been restored and different things, regardless of the condition. I also believe that I understand the issue with the sidewalk, but if you lived here as long as I have, there used to be gas pumps there.
Yes.
And that's why there isn't a sidewalk.
I understand. Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So, but I think that's a valid issue, but I think it also needs to be considered, is that going to cause a problem with the operation of a garage, is to have a curb and sidewalk and whatnot. I'm sure there's probably a solution that can be worked out. But, I just hope that we don't lose sight of, the history and what was there and why it was there, and the connection to the hospital, which is the whole reason why the town is here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I certainly hope that. And also, too, I've never seen a car without plates. I live right across from it. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that's true, but it doesn't look deserted. It's a garage. It's not meant to be like downtown Sykesville. And I know that before we moved here, our neighbor who was in here told me that when they moved here, everything was boarded up in town. Mm-hmm. So I think that if we all work together, we can come to a good solution of preserving the function of the building, of what it was originally, and making it more attractive and more friendly to the residents without taking away their right to operate a garage that they've owned for all these years. I also was here at the last meeting, and there was a lot of testimony that the garage had been operating, not as it once was when his father was alive, but it was operating, and there was testimony to that. So I'm not quite sure, he has an attorney and they're here, they can speak to all that, but just seems conflicting information, I guess. So I wish everyone can work it through, because like you said, it is a very emotional issue. We're all neighbors, and we hope that the town can bring us all together and work this through so that there's an amicable solution.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
On the preservation of the building, it is, if I understand correctly from the sign, it's right across the street from the historic district, not in the historic district, right? Okay.
Bob Miller?
Really,
I'm Bob Miller. I live across the street. That was my wife that spoke. And I would like to see business back in there. It's sat vacant. The reason it's sat vacant, because I know the Joys and I've talked with them over the years, and I've kept them informed when I'd see something out. I'd give them a call and talk to them. They'd come take care of it. I've been regular, sporadic communication with them as the need arose. But they have plans, to fix the building up. It's been their dream to see somebody go in there and operate a garage again. That was their dad's dream. That was what he lived. They, of course, they have kids and they're into other things. Cars are a hobby for them. And they finally found somebody that shared their vision, which is why it had sat, not being regularly used for so long, because they were being very picky about who they wanted to see in there, because they have an idea and a vision for, the history of the building.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
And I also would like to
sorry.
say that they've, been a big help to me over the years. I'm obviously disabled. I was hit by a drunk driver 22 years ago. When I, first after the accident, nobody even knew how bad off I was, but I didn't have any place in my own home to pay my bills at because I had to stand. And the tables are all too low. There's nothing nice and high like this for me to rest my arms on. And so I would hobble over there each day, and, when I had bills to pay, and I would stand there at the counter because they had an elevated counter, and I would pay my bills, put the stamps on them and all of that. They were very accommodating and very helpful because it was almost a full year before anybody ordered an MRI, because they dismissed me because I was still alive and that wouldn't be possible. But here I am,
Well, we're glad you're here, Bob. Thank you.
Oh, yes, me too.
All right.
So is my wife.
That's your wife.
Good marriage.
Brian, and I'm going to mispronounce your last name, Tignor? Tignor.
Mr. Tignor. Welcome, Mr. Tignor.
Thank you. My name is Brian Tignor. I live at 7312 Springfield Avenue. Directly beside the garage, this central divides me and the garage. I've been in the house for 31 years, and I lived first house in on Central for a couple years before that. So I've been here for a very long time, known the Joys for all this time. They've been a big part of the community. When I first moved in, they used to have haunted houses in the garage, free for the public during Halloween. My family is from the area. When I got the dinky tracks run through my backyard, I told my father when I'm buying the house, I got a tracksuit here. He says, son, I used to walk those tracks as a kid. My grandmother worked in town for 30 years, Frida Tigner. She retired in 81. So I have a history of coming here. I knew I was at Grandma's house when I saw the garage. It's a lifelong seeing. I've strongly believe we can work something out to keep it as its intended use. It is, even though I'm the first house in the historic district on that side, it is a historic property, being from 1917. And they said I think with proper planning and working out, I believe there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to let these people have their business. And I was here at the first meeting originally, and we had enough witnesses that if it was a murder trial, we could have convicted somebody saying that this business was open. It wasn't run as the formal business, but they were in there, from my understanding, I don't know exactly, but for the grandfathered in clause, they had somebody in there and enough on a regular business, regular time, to have kept that status. So I don't understand why that didn't go through either. But anyway, I thank you all for hearing and
Thank you, Mr.
for having
Tignor.
us out.
Appreciate you.
Jamie Tignor?
we won't quite miss Jamie.
Hi, Jamie Tigner. I live at 7312 Springfield Avenue. And I too see the comings and goings of everybody. I watch everything and everybody because I'm a corner house. So I do appreciate that they are trying to keep it as a business. I do like that. And as a few people had said about the people coming from outer state, well, I have also noticed people coming from other areas of the state to go to Cooper Park. So I don't see what the difference is between the two. If one has said one from Pennsylvania coming to our park said the Pennsylvania tagged to an automotive shop. I don't see the difference in that. Because I did notice, and there were lots of buses being bussed over to Cooper Park over the summer, which I was shocked to see, because I actually had called about it too. But that's a different subject. But, and as far as the upkeep of the place, it was I believe, one juvenile that did the vandalization on the back of that building. And I believe that he wasn't even held accountable for that.
We were asked to not
Oh,
paint over until he was.
right, right, because they wanted evidence of that. So that's why that graffiti stayed there for so long, is because they had issues with the young boy and with having, like I said, what he just said, the for it just to be there. But other than that, I didn't really see anything wrong with the property itself, because I too walk, and the walkway in front of it's always been that way. And them digging up the street right now doesn't really help it. So that too also has affected the walkway through that area. But I personally don't have a problem with them opening it back up. I'd rather see it being used than being it sat and stared at, because then you get rodents in there, you get the raccoons and whatever else that's going to be living in there. So I really appreciate them trying to open it back up, especially to another gentleman that's in the automotive and likes the car business, so I do really appreciate them trying to, like I said, having it open back up as a business. Yes. And then it helps out the community too, though, especially for the little old ladies that have tire problems or, needs their oil checked, so that also helps out the community, because they're the first place that they see. Down the street, they don't see down Main Street, they see that first building right there. And as far as it being an eyesore, that's the first place you do see when you do come in, besides the parking lot that's off to the side when you first enter Springfield. And so I wouldn't say that it's a beautiful place to look at as you coming into the city, but then what is? Who's, not everybody's is going to be roses. It's not, I don't think that I don't know, it's just my opinion, I guess, yes. But I do appreciate them trying to open it up.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Jamie.
you.
Jamie Sarah?
Mr. Jamie now.
Mr. Jamie?
Yeah, I always said Mrs. Jamie.
I'm Jamie Sarah. I live at 742 Central Avenue. I guess I'm here tonight just because I'm friends with the owners of the property. I grew up in this town. I've been here my whole life. I moved here 18 years ago. I built a house here 18 years ago. My dad's been here for 50 years until he passed away. I get the sidewalk thing. I do understand that. I live on Central. There's no sidewalks on Central. Kids walk down Central Avenue every day to school on Central. They walk right in the middle of the road, but it's 25 mile an hour. Everything's 25 mile an hour in Sykesville. So if the cars are doing what they're supposed to be doing, there shouldn't be any problem walking around. But, I understand when you do business, you're going to have to conform when you do stuff, with the sidewalks, that's fine. But I just see there was a lot of need for this. And they talk about the tags not being on cars. I'm a business owner myself. I own my own shop. I buy and sell cars and motorcycles. So I have a dealer license. And Josh, the guy the tenant, he's a mechanic of mine. So there could be cars down there with no tags, and that's perfectly legal if the property is zoned for it, because it's cars that I'm selling that he's fixing and inspecting, that then I go pick them up and then take them back, and then we sell them on my lot. So you are going to see on a shop, on a business that repairs cars, you're going to see cars with no tags. It's just because a local dealer, small dealer like myself, we go to a small dealer mechanic to fix the cars, so it just kind of goes around, comes around. I'm up in Eldersburg and he's in Sykesville. So, you're going to see that. And, out of state, you could be seeing out of state dealer. Some companies have multiple locations. If he's servicing, I don't know who else he services, but I know he's got a customer base. But so, you're going to see that. That's nothing out of the ordinary. But like I said, I've seen the kids walk up and down Central Avenue. Don't seem like it's a problem, So that's all I got. I just kind of wanted to clear that up a little bit, but I think it's good.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah.
I think it's good for the community to have just to fix the building up. It's been sitting kind of shoddy, but I'm all for it if it gets fixed up too. So But thank you.
Appreciate it.
Renee Forsberg?
Sorry, it's such an obstacle course, Miss Renee.
That's okay. These classes are not for walking.
Oh.
So I'm Renee Forsberg. I live at 7240 Springfield Avenue. I moved here in October of '92. 2 months later, my husband died. I am not from this area. I am now. I've lived here longer than I have anywhere in my life. And as a Marine widow, my kids went to school here. We started out on Main Street, bought the house where we currently live. My kids have walked the area until they grow up. My grandson walked the area. We had no, sorry, it's hard to breathe with this. We had no sidewalks on Springfield for a long time. I put in many complaints because my son was almost hit by a car coming down the road. Nothing happened until Fairhaven went in and, you know, all that. It's like Sykesville was more worried about their budget than the lives of the people around. And as a parent, that's how you look at it. So I've known the Joys for a long time. When I had issues with my car, I'm 6 houses down, and it was so easy to drop my car off, walk home, walk back, get my car. They were wonderful to me. Tom and Ruth were just joyous. And they treated me like a person who knew my car, not like I was somebody who, oh, you're a dumb bimbo and you don't know what you're talking about. They took what I said and went for it. So my issue is that I think the building should be respected for, you know, the age, the 1917. It isn't going to be perfect because of its age. I think, honestly, and a historic value, I remember how the little cottage across the street looked. It looked far worse until you guys started putting some money into it. So I think that this has the ability to put some money, but it is, after all, a service station. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be Rockefeller Center. It's just not going to be. And I think one of the bigger problems is people speed down that road. There's no stop sign. It's one way coming out of Springfield, but not, I guess, what is that, 3rd Avenue or whatever the side street is there. I never remember that. I apologize. Which one?
Jerobi?
No, going towards Fairhaven.
Oh, that's
third.
third, and then it becomes
Third,
over.
yeah.
Yes.
See, it's very confusing. So right there, that's the only stop sign, and you guys should either put a 3-way, 4-way stop there, or you should install a roundabout to stop the speeding, because there's so many cars. I mean, I can, from my window, that berm that you said I wouldn't hear anything, that's a lie, because I hear everything. You hear boom, boom, and cars all the time. They're screeching, and because they're not paying attention. I think that's going to be your biggest issue. They don't stop for school buses. I was a former school bus driver in my previous life, and that's a pet peeve of mine. So my daughter to this day walks to Sykesville Middle because she works there now. And she has numerous times been almost hit by cars. It's not the gas station's fault. It's the people who drive those cars.
Sure.
So I think we should, heed everybody here and go forward and say, let them continue their business that they were holding off because their father passed away and they had to get all the paperwork together and make sure, could they afford to keep going forward with this? I think that's such an excellent idea, because me, myself, as one of those little old ladies that need my car fixed now and again, I think it's an easier place for me to go and trust somebody than go to a bigger shop and not trust somebody and get swindled out of my money and have to do it over and over again. I'd rather go to somebody I know than somebody I don't know. And I just really appreciate these guys. I've been in touch with them ever since, their father passed, and I'm in touch with their mother. I couldn't see a better family.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Josh Priest?
So I am currently the tenant. I'm the guy that's trying to bring this thing back to life. Over a year ago, I had my plan laid out to redo the building. And just for the record, I want to clarify a couple things. I have a business license, my sales and use tax ID. I have all the certificates through Carroll County, through Maryland. I have had that since our last meeting. I'm 100% legal and ready to go for everything. I pay my taxes, I pay my own state, I pay parks taxes, everything. Nothing I do in that building is illegal or even close to it. I mean, I pay lots and lots of money out of my own pocket. I own it, I operate it, I do whatever I can out of there for anybody. And even I know they bring out of state people, they come to me because I'm good at what I do and I'm honest. I worked for Mercedes-Benz for almost 20 years, and that dealer ripped people off. I've been here for over 30 years. I've been living in Sykesville for that long. This is emotional for me because everything in that building has been my penny, my labor, everything. I had all the equipment. I had everything that I could do to bring it back to life, and I had to stop because what started all this is that I had an officer came down and he saw a car on the side and he said, "You don't have tags on this car." And I said, "Okay, well, what can I do?" He said, "Go to town hall and see if you need a permit or whatever." And I said, "Okay." Once I did that, it opened all this up. And I said, "Well, whatever I need to do, let's do it. Let's make this right." The other thing I have a question about is I do have cars that come there from all over the place. There's never once, not once, been an issue. They haven't created any issues. They haven't started any problems. They haven't been loud. They haven't been disrespectful. In fact, I have officers that come to me because I have cameras surrounding that entire building. They ask me for crimes. I spend time with them, hours with them, going through footage, saving it to file. I'm here and part of the community trying to help. Now we're at a point a year and a half later that I was asked to basically not advertise, not basically run a business, do whatever you can, but don't run a business. Word of mouth. Okay, I don't take from the two other shops around here. I can tell you more than fingers and toes that I get cars that they won't touch. The cars that I get are problematic. They take me days to diagnose. They're issue cars, and I fix them. I have cars that break down in front of me. I fix them for free and let them go. I will do anything for anybody. If you've ever met me or come to my shop, I will stop everything. I have worked from 7 in the morning till 12 at night if I have to help somebody. I just don't understand. And now we're at a point now where this was my livelihood. I put everything I had into this. And now we're talking about a year and a half later, I can barely make my mortgage. I've got kids that go to school here. I have everything else. And now we're going to try to pass something. And I'm out of money. I'm broke. I have nothing left. I had to get a second job making $20 an hour, which we know we can't live here like that. I've lived here 30 years of my life. I can't even pay a mortgage. I don't understand what the problem was. I understand if I was causing issues, and we can talk about the thumbprint. It's not a thumbprint. We own all that property. It's the whole strip from street to street. That's not just the building. That property is owned by the Joys all the way across. In fact, it's owned up the hill behind the fence that we allow other people to use, and we have. This property is in awkward shape. I get that. It is, nothing else can really go there. The building needs help. If you saw what it was and the amount of time that me, my girlfriend, the community have taken there, I have pulled weeds with my bare hands, hours, cutting grass, making sure it's clean. The construction helped out all them, helped out everybody else, worked around it, and have not tried to raise any flags. Yeah, cars are there, but how is that any different than if you're in your house and you own an acre and you park 10 cars there? I understand you can't see the view of one corner. We have talked about that. I do move them. I don't argue with you when I move the one car. I don't want that for anybody. But the misconception is too, the property isn't round. It goes straight to the street and cuts over. So technically, everybody that makes that turn is driving over our property. And we allow it. So if you were to go to the corner of where the property is, you can see perfectly fine. But they don't. So part of our original plan was we had literally tooth and nail, had a whole plan. I had soffit going up. I was going to restore this building to make it look like the old Gulf Station. Colors and everything. Bring back the historic part of Sykesville under my own dime. I was gonna have the school paint a mural on the side of the building, train stations, whatever it would be to bring this to be a part of the community. And now I'm here. I'm the one that's hurting my family. And I don't understand why. You know, I have followed whatever rules I can. I don't argue. I don't yell. You know, yeah, sure, I'll work, and then they'll say, stop, you're doing too much. I'll pump my brakes. I have struggled through all this and have made a living to the best of my ability to support 4 kids, you know, to support families, to help adults. I don't even charge for people knowing that I need the money if it's something I can fix for them quickly. I just need to catch a break. And now here we are, and I'm the one that's like, we're talking about this building trying to be restored, and that's what I was doing. I mean, painting it. I scrubbed walls in the inside and repainted it. Like, I have new electric in there. I have everything just being repaired like that was falling apart. I did that every hour of every day, along with coaching softball for the Freedom Firebirds. I'm a big part of this community. I have been coaching. I have been everything I can here, and it's like, it feels like it's attacking me. I feel like it's trying to kick me out. Like, the Joys, I have been on them for years to get into this building because I wanted to bring it back to what it was. I want to help people. I'm not going to go down the street. I'm not saying anything about Old Town or Sykesville Station. I'm saying I want people to come in, and if it was your mother or your best friend, I want to make sure that they can leave safely. I can't tell you how many people I put my own money into their car to make sure they're not going to have an accident going down the road. We have kids that get dropped off. A lot of those kids are kids that I've coached. They're kids that I've known in the community. I know from street to street most of the houses. You know, they wheel their car down that doesn't even start. They have a baby and they have to take care of it, and I fix it that day. I'll stay till 1 in the morning if I have to fix it. I just need good reason of why it's such a problem. Because also, even with Cooper Park, my kids go there. We all hang out. I was going to bring, like, if you remember back in the day, we had soda machines, we had candy machines. Like, I was going to bring a big ice bag machine because when you go down there with your family, who doesn't want bags of ice? Where can you get it from here other than, like, the Shell station maybe, you know? Like, I was trying to be a part of this community. The parade, everybody lined their chairs up on our property. And it was beautiful. And, I mean, I've seen you go down there in the car and waving at everybody. It's like, why? What is so wrong with allowing someone to live their dream and their passion under their own dime? I don't ask for anybody's help. And yet we still have kids getting dropped off. It's like them getting dropped off literally like in the middle of the road. We've asked to move it because it's not safe regardless. I don't care what's there. You don't just drop kids off in the middle of someone's like parking lot, you know? Like, we need to make an arrangement, make a stop sign there, come to a T, do whatever it is to where they're safe. I mean, I rode the bus to school. I stopped at a stop sign. Like, we didn't just get dropped off in the middle of Macbeth Way. So things can be changed on both parts. But I feel like this hurts me more than anybody. We can talk to her blue in the face. And I'm spent. Like, I don't even know what else to do. Like, I can't even, I have to think about where I'm buying a meal for my kid tomorrow. You know, it's like, why? You know, I didn't do anything to hurt anybody. I've always tried to help, and I just need to catch a break. You know, I really would like, whatever the rules may be, we were going to pave the driveway. We were going to reshape it. We were going to make sure everything, they paid for all the surveying to a T on where everything should be. I couldn't afford it. I want to put fences up in the back. It's not safe for kids to walk back and forth. I allow officers to sit there to make sure that they're safe out of the road, make sure they can monitor the kids. That's private property. And I'm more than generous to sit there and say, whatever you need. The construction. You know where they were parking?
Yes,
in Sykesville
we do.
Middle. Do you know what they park now?
Yes.
That's our property.
I know that.
So I try to do whatever I can to help everybody in that situation. It's not a money-making thing. I'm trying to keep people safe. It's all off the road. I cleared that out. Me and Meg, we cleared that whole area. I don't know if you remember. It was so overgrown coming out to the road. Vines and thorns. Kids were getting hurt with a brick wall that was there from the old house. Like, I cleared that with Meg. Hammers, like, no equipment. Like, I just want to be seen. I did everything by the rules. And even now, like, I don't know if I'll survive. Like, I don't know. I am broke. And I still keep a smile on my face and go down there and do whatever I can to help anybody. You know, if you broke down in front of my building tomorrow, I would help you. Not even charge you. I don't care about the money. I care about making a living. So whatever it is, just consider, like, we have gone 1.5 years patiently, and now it's basically run me out. Like, and it hurts. It was my life savings. Everything's gone. So it's hard. So please take that into consideration, you know, and I do it. We've talked before, and we may not see eye to eye on things, but I will do what I can to help. But at the same time, it is still private property. So where's the rule that says I can't park my... What if I wanted to put a lemonade stand there? Or I want to put, my kids want to put their bicycles there. You can't see. It's still private property within the limits. I mean, I will help. I don't say no, go away. But just work with me a little bit, you know?
So, Josh, I appreciate everything you've said. I've heard every word you've said, and I really appreciate you speaking candidly to us.
It's just hard.
I can see that, and if I were in your shoes, I would feel that way too. This is us working with you. That is what, let me finish.
Yeah,
this is us working with you. You know, when the paperwork is submitted, we do something with it. When the opportunity arises for a public process to get underway, that's when it gets underway. And you know, there's zoning for a reason. You know, people don't like the zoning until people love the zoning if it benefits them and their families and their safety, and the regulations are great if it keeps my kid from getting hit when they cross the street, but they suck when it's going to make it harder to access another person's piece of property. So but nobody here at this table, as I said earlier, is judging anyone in this room as a human being. I am disappointed, as I've mentioned, and I won't beat a dead horse. I am disappointed for how long things went on and dragged on without there being, without this opportunity, without the town knowing, and I don't mean T, capital T, I mean the community knowing that there is a business there, it is licensed, it is SDAT. I get all of that. I know that now. But it's a complete guessing game for everyone when we're trying to pull out onto the street or someone's trying to cross the street. And what's happening is something that's you know, getting in the way of someone's safety in that moment.
Right.
There's inconveniences everywhere. I get it. This isn't a catastrophe, right? Like this isn't. Sykesville's been torn up for 2 years. It's going to be torn up for, you know, another 7 months. That's still not a catastrophe.
Right.
But I don't think what anybody in here today has expressed are mere inconveniences. It's what they're concerned about as members of the community, or it's what they want as members of the community. And that's why we're having this conversation today.
Right.
I know that it must be difficult for an individual who's in your shoes to have to wade through this.
Well, I would like to clarify just really quickly.
Please.
So a year and a half ago, we were here with 5 members, and our whole argument was define business operations, because the rules stipulated that you needed to have business operations to be grandfathered in, right?
Ongoing, continuous.
Well,
business
right, ongoing, right. You can't lapse 6 months or more without, you know. And our question was the whole time was define as a council business operations. There is no definition for what consumes a business. For example, one of the examples were I don't see an EIN on the business currently, so it's not business operations. And then he also proceeded to say, in 07, I know it was open because I went and got my oil change there. When you go to Jiffy Lube or Walmart, do you ask them for their EIN? When you go to Tim's Used Tires, do you ask them for their business information or do you get your tire changed? Conforming or not, at that time, I was ready, in the same position we are now, I was ready to rock and roll. With every rule, all I said was just give me all the rules now. Let's define business operations. Let's elaborate on this to define it. If it needs an EIN, if it needs this, we can go from there. I had everything. Everything was lined up to a T, and all we had to do was say, okay, from this point on, this is where we are. So we were advised to go business general and try to apply for that. Patiently, they have been generous with me. They have worked with me. And here we are a year and a half later. And now we're right back where we were that same day, staying business local. We made the same suggestion to remain business local, conforming to your rule, however it may be, and we were all willing to do whatever you wanted us to do to conform. We just wanted an explanation for business operations. I have had plenty of phone calls. He said, "You look like a business." I said, "How do I look like a business?" So please define business operations. Is it cars coming and going? Is it, do you have to have an EIN? It was never defined for us. So I'm not saying that it could be a thumb store for some people and not for others, but we're right back where we were a year and a half. And if we were having the same conversation with this council, it seems very viable, and you guys are really like, this is a lot better than it was for us, a year and a half ago. I wouldn't be out of money. We could sit here and we could be at this very moment and figure out what it is to conform. That's what we wanted in the first place. Why did I have to wait a year and a half until I ran out of money, if I ran out of everything? That's what I'm getting at. It's not your fault that I don't have enough money, but the time frame that it took to be right back at square one, I had money saved up to put this building on the map from September to January and have a grand opening. I mean, redone completely on my own dime. And we had setups with Sykesville Middle to paint. We had all these things happening, and then we had to stop because how am I going to put money into a building that could be shut down tomorrow? That's the part that I just don't understand. Why we're back to the same spot from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, it's confusing and it's hurtful, and that's where my argument is. That's what kills me the most, because why? And they spent thousands and thousands of dollars to do everything for Business General, and then it's like, nope. I get that, that's fine. But we are ran by this community, right? Like, we take votes, we're all part of this, and it just seemed like one person decided that because there wasn't EIN on the building, he made that call. But there's a whole council, there's a whole reason. All we asked was for a definition. We never got it. Still to this day, we never got it. And if we do go forward with this text, we need to define that. We need to define for anybody else that goes in. I mean, obviously we'll be regulated in if that's the way it works, but I don't want this to happen to anybody else for anything. We need to, I just don't understand why there wasn't an explanation. And we were told to wait, and now here we are. I'm confused, And in the process, everybody else is going on vacations or doing, no disrespect to anything, but I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. And I do it with my head held high, and I still do whatever I can for this community. But now I'm pleading because I'm hurting,
So can I ask some questions about about going forward? And I'm not sure the meeting you're referring to. Is that the Planning Commission meeting, or was
It was the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Oh, okay, so that wasn't with the council. The meeting you're talking about. Okay, so I'm like,
Okay, so
I have just a lot of.
I'm not very political,
I'm trying to figure out what
and excuse my
You're
conversating.
fine.
I'm just trying to understand everything.
Yeah, and it's a process. I'm the newest councilwoman here, and I still am learning the process. So I get it. What I don't understand and so running the business, there are these two other properties, but we're not talking about them. And from what I've seen walking in the neighborhood and driving, and I've had the complaints from my neighbors and my family members about the black truck and you can't see around it. That's the safety piece. My question though is, why are we just talking about the triangle? Because you are parking cars behind, and we're saying that that's not going to happen. And it sounds like, the other property that you have, that's where you would park cars, but it's
You can make
not.
adjustments for sure.
So I guess that's my guess would be you'd need those properties to run the business. You need to utilize the space behind it and around to.
Not if you want me to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only because we talked a little bit about this at Planning Commission as well. So there are 3 parcels, as you've identified. Only the one with the garage, as you probably are familiar with, is zoned BL. The other 2 are not zoned BL.
But you're not asking that those be included in the zoning.
Those were not a subject of the rezoning petition. They will not be impacted by any text amendment to the BL zone.
Okay, but you do want to use those to park the vehicles.
There's a provision, and you might be able to cite to it faster than I can, in the code.
That allow, if there's an adjacent parcel next to a commercially designated piece, you can ask the Board of Zoning Appeals to, it's basically called off-site parking. And they can approve using another parcel for that business.
Without changing the
Without
zoning
changing
of
the
that
zoning.
property.
Right, it wouldn't become commercially zoned. It would just be allowed to have parked vehicles there if it went through the correct process under the code. So
And you prefer
they're not the
to do-
subject of tonight because they're not zoned BL, but I mean, as you've identified, in the greater picture of everything,
So I just-
they're relevant.
They will be, so we do need to, when we're talking about this, we are talking though, the vehicles space will be used on all of those properties. It's not that those properties.
I don't know
will stay-
about all of those properties, but that one portion, the former railroad bed portion where cars are parked, I think that certainly, I'm not sure about that other portion is currently used by that house, that other parcel is currently used by the house that adjoins it. So I'm not certain of the long-term use of that. But yes, you need to consider that to an extent, but not necessarily as it impacts the text amendment, because the text amendment would impact every BL zoned property. Any BL zoned property could come in with a similar request. So it's not unique to this. It's just interesting and perhaps not common that a family owns 3 adjoining parcels. So here, that's
Yeah,
the case.
so in that process question, I just wasn't clear why we weren't talking about all 3 of them combined.
Yes, I mean,
versus-
the process is just because it's not zoned BL, so it wouldn't directly be impacted by the text amendment. But, I mean, yes, this property overall does comprise 3 parcels. They're just differently zoned.
And then, yeah, and I remember we looked at it, and I was listening to the planning meeting and was just trying to figure out why we're not talking about all of them, because it seems like for space, and, I just mentioned the black truck, because I know it's, yeah. But that if, you could park it in the back, then obviously it wouldn't be in the front with that weird angle.
Because the tree's dying and the walnuts smashed like every car back there. So I'm working on, as part of the process.
And we did have those discussions with staff before we submitted the rezoning petition. I think we both agreed that it was appropriate to maintain that buffer of residential without actually changing the zoning district of that piece. And so that's why when you saw the rezoning petition, that property was not part of the requested rezoning.
And then another question for you, when you were talking about being part of the community and doing things, one of the questions I think we had kind of mentioned in previous discussions we'd had, the middle school piece and the kids buying candy and that whole thing, were you planning on bringing that portion back, or was it just going to be a service station?
Yeah, there's a place on the far side of the building that has a platform and plugs. It would be nice. It would be nice to have something that looked pleasing, that would have that stuff. It was all lined up. To do that.
So that is part of the plan,
was
to be, okay.
There, kids can walk over and get ice cream. I have kids that come through constantly, and he's right, they run all up and down the street. I mean, I tell them to get out the street. I tell them to walk over here. It's just everywhere, but.
Can you get them to not wear shorts in the winter?
How successful are we?
Sorry, that's just a kid issue. I also.
We've got teenagers, we've got a 6-year-old. I went to Sykesville Middle. I was the first graduating class in Oklahoma. I've lived here all my life. And, there's goods and bads you can pick about so many things, and if I could just add a little good, that's all I wanted to do, and I'm not gonna be if you go anywhere in Ellersburg, look at half the shops in there. There's 15 shops in walking distance. They manage, they do their thing, and a lot of times they're not the most reputable all the time,
And what would the impact of the sidewalk be for you, if that
So the way
because my understanding is the state highway wants to put it as part of their.
Curious to how that works too.
Well, let me tell you, so I'm good friends with the owners of what was Devil's Garage. If you're familiar with Westminster at all, where Pennsylvania Avenue splits from Main Street up by the college. There's a big garage on the corner. He also owns Albert's Hardware, and he owns that whole stretch. And he went through a similar experience with the city of Westminster when they added the sidewalks in the front. As long as it's planned appropriately with the lowering areas for vehicles to come in and out of, not only is it not a problem, but like everybody's already talked about, it's kind of adds a little bit more to the staple of it being the corner shop that the kids walk by and get their candy bars from and stuff like that. So Yeah, and we understood very early on, long before this process, that things like sidewalks, fences, et cetera, are all in play with the planning. I don't know the technical terms for it, but you have to make sure that we know that we have to do these certain things before we can go do what we want to do. So that part of it, whatever the government speak is for it.
I think it's a goofy property, the lines. I never saw the plat, but the way they talk, like, I guess when you pull out of Central Avenue, you gotta go straight, and like their property comes out to a point. And like usually when I make a left, I probably cut through their parking lot.
Everybody does.
I mean, that's happened.
And
I've
then
been here 18 years.
when they paved Central Avenue, it's just.
Did you want to formally come up?
And actually, if I can intervene, I just want to try to steer this in another direction. I'm a small business owner myself, and I rent the space where I am. And I hear you talking about all the money you're putting into improvements and things like that. I really want to hear from you guys what you're putting into it. What is your plan?
Oh, as much.
No, let me finish. Let me finish,
Sorry.
please. Everybody says the building is fallen into disrepair and it needs to be fixed. What are you guys going to do to make it part of the community now?
Oh, well, so we'll start at the beginning. Tom Joy, 3308 Nicholson Road, Westminster. I'll answer that first, and then I'll totally forget the other things that I was going to talk about. Yeah, we've invested a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. We have plans to invest a lot more time, money, and effort. If you walked inside the building, if you were privy to enter, and if you did that 10 years ago, it's night and day. Josh has been beating himself to death and doing all the improvements on the inside, as we said, because why are we going to do anything outside when, for one, we don't know what's the status of all this going to be, and two, it was specifically asked of us to keep it low key, which obviously doesn't mean repaint the front, repave the lot, put a sign out front because we were told, So there's a lot of misunderstanding with that goes way farther back than a year ago. So a little bit of history real quick. Dad started working there in '74. It was, as we all know, we heard of 1917 a bunch of times. We've heard 2204-01 a bunch of times. So Dad started working there, as basically a kid in '74. By '78, he was given the opportunity to buy it. And he bought out Oscar Hawkins and took over the property. I credit that building with my extraordinary immune system. That was literally second home. I ate ice cream off of the floor of that shop. Yeah, we had the Halloween thing. Kids would come through. We'd scare the hell out of them. They'd have a good time. When you're, if you have anything to do with owning a business on your own, it is your life. Dad put his life into that place, and we grew up there. And as soon as I was a teenager, I'd leave Westminster High School at 2:35. I was in there. I better be in there at 3 o'clock. And I was picking up trash, weed eating, changing oil, changing brakes, changing engines, as you spend time in there and Dad teaches you, and there's only one way to learn, and it's a good thing I punched holes in the side of his tires on his truck and not a customer's, but you learn a lot from something like that. And the one thing I learned about it is when you have your own business, you live and breathe and eat that business. We didn't go on vacations as kids and stuff like that. Like, that was second home. The shop. It's just the shop. I'm the oldest of the four of us. I'm 7 years older than him. So, yeah, it's sentimental, it's emotional. There's a lot of memories attached to that building. But I'm also really good at being just rational. That property is what it is. And as we've said in previous meetings, it'd be you'd be hard pressed to make that property into something else. But at the same time, it's not 1978 anymore. Things do progress, things do change. We have to change with them. It is a small town, it's a local shop. When you're good at what you do, yes, people come from all over. I guarantee you, somebody with a Mercedes that knows that he knows how to fix it for a millionth of the cost of what it would take to go to that dealership in Pennsylvania is going to drive down and see Josh. That's cool. That's good. If people are searching you out, that means you know what you're doing. So that's good. We did wait. We did look for a good tenant. I'm ASE Master Certified. I've done IT for 22 years since I graduated high school. I'm ASE Master Certified on every option that is available for automotive because, for one, it's my hobby and it's fun and I like that stuff. But for two, I had every intention of reopening it myself with my dad. He got cancer. Stuff didn't work out the way that I planned. I have 3 kids of my own, 13, 10, and 2. So Dad gets sick. We deal with the MD for a couple years with the tanks. We deal with him passing. We deal with my mom and his divorce. We deal with life. And you know what? You guys all probably know sitting here, especially now me with a 13-year-old, it goes damn fast. Now, I understood it, and everyone else understood it, that if we use the property, quote, as it is written in the documentation, if it is used once within 6 months for the intended purpose, it doesn't say for business purpose, it says for the intended purpose. Meaning if I fix a car in that building once every 6 months, it was our understanding that that kept the non-conforming use grandfathered in. We would fix things there periodically ourselves. We had full equipment there. We had welder, exhaust machine, tire machine. Even though it looked like it wasn't much from the outside, we could do anything. I could rebuild your entire car in that building. And we did things there long enough that we thought that we were fine. Josh comes in, and as he said, he's not lying. I could probably pull up emails from 2019. Him and I discussing the idea of him possibly coming in there and saying, and like I said at the time, you know, it was still my intention after. One of the things that got my dad the most excited was when I said, you know, we're just going to reopen it ourselves, Dad. And he was elated. He was in a bad spot in life at that point. You know, when you do something your whole life and you pour your whole life into it and you lose the ability to do it, I don't care what that thing is you did, it takes something from you. And he thought he was going to get that back a little bit. Okay, we missed the boat. Life doesn't always go as planned. So Josh hammers on me, and finally we get some time and we meet, and I'm thinking, you know what, this is, you know, this isn't what I can do with my life, with my kids, with my wife. It is what Josh can do, and as a team, we thought that we were going to be able to really put this back on the map. I have that picture of the golf station from the 50s. I have the same car. If you guys have all seen it on Facebook, probably. It's golf. It's still the 2 bays. There's like a 53 4-door sitting out in front of it. I have a 52 Chevy 4-door that was my great-great-grandfather's car. It has 24,000 miles on it. It's not worth anything because it's a 4-door, but it's still cool. And I put my kids in the back and, you know, took them down to Ocean City in it before and stuff like that. Cars are a hobby. They're fun. And they can also bring a community together. They can bring friends and family together. Car shows, the parade, stuff like that. So as far as like using it as a garage in the town, I could cite 1,001 reasons why that's great for the town, and I'm having a hard time finding anything that can't be worked around as a negative. Things like the sidewalk, things like the crossing, things like the school, the kids coming over and buying candy. Josh is probably one of the kids that my dad made answer a math test question before he would like give him a candy bar when he was a kid going to Sykesville Middle. But Josh fit the bill. Like he had the same like passionate energy to bring it back to being part of the community, not just to make money, but to just make it a life, which is what my dad did. That was our life. And as he said, it's emotional, and I get rambling when I'm nervous and emotional. Sorry, YouTube. But anyhow, we're happy to answer any questions we can answer. We have already bent over as far backwards as possible, and we want to keep doing that to work with the town, not against it, work with the community, not against them, and make it that thing that when you come around that corner, you do see that. Like, that is what's there, and I want it to be shiny and bright. And I want the little sign out on the thing, and I want it to light up at night. And so I think it's a good place to stop it there.
So getting back to my original question,
yeah.
What is your vision for the exterior?
So paint, like he said, soffit paint. I mean, not a lot of change. And for one, we don't have the room to add on to it if we wanted to.
I understand.
But it's just fit and finish. Paint the new windows, the sign up on the pole out there on the corner that used to be. If any of you remember phone booths, there was a phone booth out there. You know, there's still the pad for it, the poles there. You know, whatever, if the sign said Josh's Garage or whatever, but when you come around that corner, I want it to look good. I want it to look nice.
More modern too.
Yeah, if there's
be going to have all aluminum soffit.
Yeah, if there's a sidewalk, if you can picture just paint in a sidewalk in a freshly paved lot, how much does that change of your your idea of what that place looks like.
New windows.
Just that, and don't do anything else.
It would be one.
Don't do anything else to
New
it.
windows, like.
So if you have any vision and can picture that, like, and then you start doing the other stuff where the doors are open and there's people and there's movement and there's life there. So yeah, I mean basic stuff. Obviously the lot and the paint and the windows and all that kind of nice stuff. The old signs. I mean those old signs. The lights burned out on, but literally they're just there out of homage to Dad. But yeah, it's 2024. It's easy to make stuff look nice. So, but it's going to be a lot more than just IKEA. It's not just going to look nice. Like, it's going to be solid.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? While I'm up, Joe, you have you have a question for me?
Did you make a comment about our podium?
He did.
I'll tell you what. If this podium broke right now, I guarantee you, Josh and I could rebuild this whole podium right here in front of me. No.
Give me a minute.
All right. I'm done.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless Daniel had anything to say.
No.
It's funny, like Big Brother always like my oldest son talked very quick, then our middle son took a while to talk, and now our 2-year-old with a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old in the house. He doesn't even talk. And they're like, oh, Jet wants his milk. How did you know that? You're not even in the same room.
And again, unless there was anything else from Ms. Miller, I think that's the list.
I was gonna finish us and wrap us up.
Great.
If I can. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things, a lot of emotion, a lot of frustration, those sorts of things. I'm going to do my best to refocus and recap here. So I appreciate tonight's hearing. I really appreciate the dialogue and the questions and the ability to interact. So thank you all for that. I also wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight because I think we heard a lot of really relevant information. And I don't want to disregard any of the concerns about the past use, but I do kind of want to focus on the actual text amendment that's being proposed here tonight because that impacts the BL zone across your town and is not specific to this property. It's specific to the town as a whole. So when I do that analysis and I look at the other uses in the BL zone, I find that this is very appropriate in the BL zone, especially appropriate as a conditional use, which is what has been put forward by Planning Commission. Some of the other conditional uses in the BL zone are carpentry or woodworking shops, sheet metal shops, trade shops, computer and electronics, wholesale business warehousing. So this is very in line, I think, in the terms of the characteristics of the use of a service garage. A service garage usually operates during regular business hours. It has public traffic. It serves a public need, and whether that be an immediately local community or otherwise, it serves a community. So I think it falls in line with the uses in the BL zone and is an appropriate use to add to the BL zone. I would also say that I think, Joe, please tell me if I'm wrong, that the only zone it's allowed in now is the BG. So if there is no property that is BG, there is no uses allowed of a service garage in the town. So I think it is appropriate for the town to recognize that because no properties are zoned BG, at least currently, that it's an appropriate use to allow for in the town limits. I would also say that, again, while I just deterred from the specifics of this property is about 0.2 acres. So although I just listed a lot of those other uses to you, realistically, this property would never be able to develop under modern regulations with many of those other uses, even many of the principal permitted uses in the BL zone. That's just a reality of 2024. I had to think about that one for a second. And so that certainly was part of the thought process in wanting to continue this as a garage, as well as all of the sentimental reasons that have been shared with you tonight. I also want to speak just briefly to the facade improvements of the facility. It's normal, if you will, to not be able or want to put money into a non-conforming use. A lot of times you have trouble getting financing through a bank for a non-conforming use. It's not a legally favored use. So legitimizing this use in the BL zone allows for a lot of those opportunities that you would not otherwise have. So I think that furthers the interests and goals of the town too, to see this site redeveloped, not redeveloped, I shouldn't say that, rehabbed, because it's really just an improvement to the existing building on the site. in a way that's appealing to everybody. And so I would renew my request that I made to Planning Commission to consider calling out 2 different service garages, one being 3 bays or less as a principal permitted use, and one being greater than that, a large service station. Because although we are talking about a use that's been described here tonight, a service station could be much greater than the use that's been described tonight. You know, you could be talking about Jiffy Lube, and we recognize that. So I think in making my case to the Planning Commission, that was one of the reasons that I put forth, is that is a much more intense use than the one we're talking about. And so to recognize that, I would just, again, request that you consider making 3 bays or less a principal permitted use, and anything greater a conditional use that then requires that extra step, recognizing that anything requires a site plan. The differentiating factor being what requires going through a Board of Zoning appeals case prior to the site plan process. So with that, I think our overall goal here tonight is to let Josh be successful. So, and I appreciate everyone's time here tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we've probably hashed through them, but if there are any lingering questions, I'm here and available to answer them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, I proposed to the council, if we're all in agreement, we'll keep the public comment period open through and including next meeting.
I would like to close it right now. Do you think we'll have any better arguments than what we heard tonight?
I think it would allow for anyone that has watched the meeting this evening to comment at least via email, and I don't see anything wrong with keeping it open.
I think we've heard the testimony here from Josh and these guys. I think they want to move it along. So
We still have to. Oh, you want to take action on the ordinance this evening?
Well, let me make a motion and see where it goes. I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing tonight.
Right, but that doesn't change. That doesn't move anything more quickly along for anyone.
Because this was just the introduction of the ordinance.
Okay.
Right.
There has to be another agenda item on the 22nd.
Right.
Yes, and so it has to continue regardless.
Okay.
So that being said, we will move on then to the next item on the agenda, and I will give you guys a good 30 seconds if you don't want to stay any longer to cut out.
Or you're more than welcome
Or
to
stay.
Do you want us to leave?
No. Usually everybody does after
I absolutely not. I just would rather it happen in an organized fashion if you are leaving.
So motion for 2-minute recess?
Thank you. 2-minute recess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second. 22nd.
Yeah, we would run out if we could.
A resolution for the downtown. Warning here for CMC. I don't know if they paused us or not. So we need a motion to come out of recess and go back into open session.
Motion to go back into open session.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Dyer. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, here we go. Back in session, item number 5 on the agenda is to consider, discuss, act on resolution number 2024-01 allowing alcohol at downtown Sykesville Connections events. I presume you all have reviewed the resolution. Does anyone have questions or even further concerns or need for asking or for Joe to give us updates?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-01.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Dyer. That is the motion on the table. Any need for further questions or debate? All in favor of the motion on the table to approve resolution 2024-01 to allow for alcohol serving at the Downtown Sykesville Connection events, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's unanimously passed resolution number 2024-01. I guess we'll sign that now. That brings us to our announcements and reports. I'll begin with the first announcement. The next meeting is Monday, January 22nd, 2024. We have volunteer opportunities available on the Historic District Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Police Auxiliary. Please email town@sykesville.net for more information about volunteering with the town if you're interested. Brings me to our staff updates. We'll begin with our town manager and his updates for the community. Please, sir.
Just very briefly, you probably noticed that on Springfield Avenue, the work did not begin today, so they did not actually shut down Springfield Avenue. I have a strong feeling, even though I have not confirmed this, it's because of what I was going to mention next, which is the weather for tomorrow. Though it's not snow, there is supposed to be torrential rain that's going to come through starting, mid-morning. In all likelihood, that's why they're holding off on the work on Springfield Avenue. And the only other thing is just a warning. I know it's budget revision season, so just get ready for budget revision number 1, which is all likelihood is going to be introduced at our next meeting, but certainly at the latest the first meeting in February.
So just a question in reference to that, with their schedule. So we're in the middle of winter.
Correct.
And so are they going to keep doing this over and over again and then sort of delay out what this whole process looks like because tomorrow's icy, then the next day's snowy, and then we get rain, and then something else happens? Like why do this?
Because Friday's going to be the same thing. Friday's supposed to be torrential rains again.
Right. Like I don't understand the sort of project planning here.
Well, again, I think it's just getting started on it. Once it gets started, it's going to go because it's going to be closed at that point. I just don't think they wanted to try to dig a hole just so it could fill with rain tomorrow.
Okay.
Again, just a yes.
Can I ask what is the detour?
What
we
is
have
the
sign.
detour?
I don't understand the signs.
Just anywhere other than Springfield Avenue.
So their turn. They haven't set them up yet.
They haven't set them up.
I know, that's why I can't figure out what the path is.
Wait till the road is closed.
But are they coming down first?
Oh, yes, in all likelihood.
Okay.
First and Second Avenue are part of the detour. There's actually a detour sign set up on Obrecht that will take them down Third Avenue, back to Springfield.
See, that's
down
what
to
I don't
Rhodey.
understand.
Yeah,
there's not one detour route?
No, there's plenty.
Okay, can I pull out of Central at the Joy's property and turn left?
Yes.
That will not be closed?
Correct.
Okay,
You will
because...
not be able to, well, you can turn right. You won't be able to continue.
No, I
all
just
the
want
way
to
down.
turn left.
Yes, you can turn left and you
will
can
be able
turn
to turn
right,
left.
but have to make your first left.
Oh, in the really narrow...
Yeah.
Okay.
Stones about it, so you can
Walnut, yeah.
To go through.
Because that's
the-
local,
so
it's
that's
local
open
traffic.
too. Okay.
Yeah.
So when the signs go up, that would be really helpful because there have been a lot of debates in my house about how much traffic we should expect and what's going on. So.
They don't have proper visas to get into Girlville?
No, we don't have construction now, so I don't care who drives past. But we were just kind of trying to figure out, like,
again.
right. So no, we were just trying to figure it out.
Copy. Anything else, Joe?
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. That brings me to our public safety report, and I will invite Chief Spalding to his microphone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
I will try to be brief in the interest of time.
Thank you, sir.
Man, I did want to address a number of questions that I got.
Yes, please.
Before I start with the public safety report. So, questions pertain to, I'll just use the last 5 digits of the incident number, 00281 the question was it a kid getting threatened? What was the results? It was not a kid, but it was an adult, actually about a 70-year-old adult. And basically, the the suspect was trying to extort money out of the adult by threatening to expose alleged nude photos on Facebook, and I think Telegram was the other social media app.
Thank you.
That was that question. 00282, the question was, what was the assault and the results? It was a male suspect allegedly forced a female victim to the floor, held his forearm across her neck. Suspect also broke a mirror in the victim's apartment. Criminal charges have been applied for and served on the suspect. This was not a domestic violence situation, as they were not involved in a relationship and didn't cohabitate or reside together.
Did they know each other?
Yes, they had a former relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
283, just some more information. Town resident involved collision involving a suspected intoxicated driver. Suspect was not from town, was from Marriottsville. A blood kit was administered, and we're awaiting the results of that before charges will be applied for. 00284 and 287, was anyone ever caught, charged? 284 was a suspect was identified and is known to the officers. He has a mental health disorder, so no charges were filed. It wasn't, I know the charge actually said burglary, but it was not a burglary. It was, had rang their doorbell and jiggled the door handle, but no entry was made.
Okay.
In that case. 287 was suspect has been identified, but we have not located or contacted him as of yet. I know I'm not going into a lot of detail about these cases, but if you have questions, please ask. In 288 was a stolen vehicle from Willow Bottom, a road occurred between 3 and 4 in the morning. That was actually our 5th stolen vehicle of the year in our town, which is the most we've had since I've been here.
Like from 2024 already?
No, 2023, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Vehicle was unlocked with the keys in it.
Oh,
That doesn't sound stolen then.
And the victim's purse in it.
No.
Yeah.
Was it a Hyundai?
It was not a Hyundai.
Didn't have to be.
I know, but how do you know to look for the keys to be in it if you're not looking for them?
Vehicle was subsequently recovered the same day, abandoned in where else? Baltimore City.
Was it drivable after that, do you know, or you don't?
No damage.
Well, they didn't need to break it, they had the keys.
No broken window,
Yeah, but
nothing.
they didn't run it into a tree either, so
Oh,
that's
yeah,
good.
that's kind of what I...
And I just wanted to, on that case, if I could jump ahead real quickly, Sergeant Slayerth wrote an email about this case, and I just want to read it real briefly. It's just one paragraph. This is Sergeant Slayerth. I wanted to commend Sergeant Lacey and PSC Hoppe on the job they did to facilitate the recovery of the stolen vehicle from the case I just mentioned. On 12/23/2023, a vehicle was reported stolen, again, Willow Bottom Road. PSC Hoppe worked with Sergeant Lacey, who assisted while he was off duty, and the victim to ping the stolen vehicle through the Subaru app. And located it in Baltimore City. They worked together to have the Baltimore Police Department find and recover the vehicle so quickly, it was not even necessary to enter it into the system as a stolen vehicle.
Oh.
Wow, that's amazing.
The investigation is ongoing, but it is an example of initiative and good investigative work on both of their ends. Please make a note in the respective files. So Sergeant Slayer took the time to write that because he was so impressed with the teamwork by Sergeant Lacey and PFC Hoppe.
Awesome.
That being said, we'll briefly cover the public safety report
Okay.
for the period December 5 through January 1. As you'll see, has been a busy time. Total of 941 total events, 21 assist other agency, 14 community policing. Still doing foot patrols, 34 foot patrols, 581 patrol checks, 39 traffic enforcement initiatives. During that time, there was 14 incident reports that were written. More than happy to answer any questions you may have about any of those.
Just a quick one, just curiosity's sake more than anything else. What's a 1055/1095 driver?
A drunk driver and one that was arrested.
Okay, got it.
Chief, just for, and I'm not sure if you've addressed this before, but what's the difference between school crossing detail and school crossing guard?
What we did to keep track of the number of times that our school crossing guards are there is we opened a separate event for the school crossing guards. So anytime you see that, that means one of our two, which we're now down to one, actually, crossing guards was there. If it's a school crossing detail, one of our officers had to do it.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
And while on that subject, I would like to reiterate that we recently lost one of our school crossing guards, left us with just one. So we are certainly looking for someone else that would want to step up and help get our kids safely across.
We should have announced that when we had a room full of people who live on Central and Springfield.
Very true.
Sounds like they have a lot of free time.
Yeah, invested in the,
And our former school
And she
crossing
was
guard
there,
was
I
here.
know.
Well, wait, we have their addresses. We could just send them a note just
And
saying.
their phone numbers too. We're on it.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted you to know.
Perfect.
Can I ask a question related to kind of the comments here and talking about that Joy property? It just reminded me about the issues we've had with speed in that space, and if we could revisit a camera just at Sykesville Middle on Springfield, is there
The speed trailer?
the speed
Well,
camera?
well,
I mean,
no,
how do
you
we-
want to, we want to consider an actual camera in the school zone.
Yes.
To be in operation at all hours, not just school hours. And,
Yeah, so how do we do that? Because I know we've talked about it.
Long
It's come up.
process, yeah, it has to go through the state highway.
So how do we
and-
start it?
But it also don't we have to go through a whole ordinance
could-
process like we
Yes.
did last time?
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
except because it is in the school zone, it should be, I would like to think, less of a cumbersome.
It was the same time, that was the same issue last time. It was
Yeah, but it was
proposed,
also 3 different areas.
but they were all considered school zones.
Copy.
Can we try it again in just in the
Yep.
just on Springfield? I mean,
Yeah.
it continues to be an issue. It's being brought up again. If we're gonna have, I'd like them to be able to, if we move to the garage
was
being
it?
there.
Where was it reviewed before? I'm sorry, I missed.
Through the council, it came.
No,
What
where are the
locations?
roads? Yeah, the locations.
Oh,
They were gonna.
it was the Montessori
They-
school
Montessori
on
school.
It
College,
has to be within a
and it
certain
was
radius of a school, that's the only
and it was,
permissible use.
the church preschool stepping stones on.
The former police chief wanted to utilize, he thought those would cover school zones, and I mean, we were basically blanketing the town at that point. And so we passed an ordinance, and then there was a referendum, and it was overturned on referendum. So I think it might be more successful if you limit it to Springfield, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, that and the whole argument of the people who, this was like the only time I was quoted publicly.
Okay.
Was because I wanted the cameras there. Was they were bringing people in from Howard County, and the whole argument was what they were saying door to door was if Carroll County, if we put one here, then they would get them in Howard, and they're everywhere in Howard County. So I don't think they're gonna, the same opposition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are gonna be, I mean, they're in Baltimore, they're in every county but Carroll at this point.
I was just gonna ask you, Chief, is there any other area in Carroll County that has school speed cameras?
I don't believe so, but
I
I'll
don't
check
think
with the
it
sheriff
can.
on that. I know he has the cameras in the school buses for
Right. No,
that,
but just
but
the-
whether he has them in school
I don't
zones or
think
not,
Yeah, I know in Baltimore County, Howard County, Anne Arundel County.
Yeah,
they
I
all
think
have
we're
them.
the only, but the argument at the time from the door-to-door people was that, like, if we got it, then other areas would, everyone else has them now except for us in
it's a long
Springfield,
involved
still an issue.
process. My only concern would be there's not a high volume of traffic on Springfield, whether a vendor would be willing to come in and do that, because it's such a small volume of traffic there, but.
Even with the school?
Huh?
Even with the school, it
Yeah.
seems.
It's still a low volume roadway.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, the vendor
but
gets a cut off of each ticket.
it's a
Oh,
big
yeah.
cut.
I can tell you that on my way to when I'm in work, there's a speed camera right next to a school, and it's most often not working, that it is working.
Yeah.
Because if it's a vendor that maintains it, then we're relying on that vendor.
But just knowing that, like, just knowing that it's there and it may or may not be on, I think slows people down.
Well, they work.
Until
They
you
clearly
know
work.
it's not on.
Well, that's true. But can we
Who
just what do we
speeds?
need to do to start the process, or how, that's my only question.
Take a look, yeah.
I
Thank you.
can start exploring, what's required. and-
Talk about it at the retreat.
Just get going.
I have one real quick thing, I wanted to point this out. You may have seen the case, it was 291, it was where one of our officers assisted citizen in getting in the treatment center for substance abuse.
Yes.
And again, I wanted to real briefly read, this was a favorable job observation report that Sergeant Lacey wrote about PFC HAPA. And I'll read it real quickly. On 12/27/2023, PFC HAPA was assigned a call for assistance between a mother and a daughter. The daughter, 31 years old, is a struggling person in the throes of prescription drug and alcohol abuse. She is basically homeless and in a severe state of dysfunction. The mother arrived at the station with an urgent request for help with this situation. She has been desperately trying to get her daughter into treatment. All attempts have failed, and she is at her wit's end. PFC HAPA was able to locate the daughter, gain her trust, and develop a rapport with her enough to get her to agree to enter herself at Shoemaker House. PFC HAPA contacted Shoemaker and was able to make an urgent case for assistance to this young lady. And reading the narrative of the attached report, this is another amazingly compassionate job done by PFC HAPA. She even offered her name and phone number should the Shoemaker attempt fail and need further assistance and intervention finding another location for help or treatment. She did an amazing job going above and beyond helping a severely troubled young lady and her mother's cry for help. That's the kind of officers we have here, and very proud of her.
That's fantastic.
Going above and beyond. It's not just about enforcement and arrests, it's about helping people in need.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Chief.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Not a question. I think just from what you just read and everybody's responses, if you could collectively pass them along as one from all of us, that we're proud of her too.
I absolutely will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's community policing at a new level.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I believe that brings us, we have no treasurer's report. I'm not looking at my agenda. Are we done? Committee reports. Yes, how could I forget? Thank you so much, President Carter. Anyone on my right have anything to share about their liaison position or anything for the good of the order?
Sure. For the Downtown Sykesville Connection, we have our 2024 calendar events out now that has received approval from the DSC board, town staff, and the police department. These events reflecting our community spirit will soon be accessible on the DSC website and social media channels. We also are supporting smaller merchant-led event initiatives, which will now also be conveniently listed on a new merchant event tab on our website. And I'm on there now. I think there is one currently merchant event coming up that is the 2024 Cocoa Crawl for February 24th from 12 to 4 p.m. This year our focus is going to be enhanced diversity and inclusion across our events. This commitment is evident in our selection of artists, performers, and food vendors. Our dedication to diversity has been recently acknowledged through a new grant called the Shine Grant, which was a $10,000 award from the Maryland Humanities. It's apparently a prestigious recognition given to only 100 out of 3,000 Maryland nonprofits. And that highlights the work that the group in DSC has done promoting diversity. Also planning several initiatives for Black History Month next month. One of the highlights includes Rhythms of Heritage, a celebration of Black History Month through recognizing the impact of Black artistry at Acts Intergrace. And these efforts are part of a broader commitment to inclusivity and furthering community engagement. And then finally, the DSC is in process of submitting an annual report to the Maryland Main Street program, sharing our 2023 impact sheet with our partners and stakeholders, showcasing our positive changes, and setting the stage for what we hope is going to be another landmark year for growth, inclusivity, and community spirit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilman Keenan?
The Historic District Commission met December 27th. They approved the sign for Feet First, which is basically, the sign is the exact same footprint as the Tri-Sports junction on Main Street that basically turned over the ownership to Feet First. I don't know what's turned over. I'm sure they sold it.
I'm sure they have.
They were here. They were there. They were here. They're very excited to be on Main Street. Looking forward to grand opening soon.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting the new owners, and they're in it to win it as far as the community is concerned in downtown, so I'm excited. Thank you, Councilman Grassley. Anything from you, Councilmember Guroff? No?
No.
How about you, President Carter?
I will be attending my first Raincliff board meeting via Zoom on January 17th.
Awesome.
And then I also want to make a public announcement that on our mailed flyers to everybody, the farmer's market is still going to be on Sundays. That Saturday dates were posted, but it is Sunday.
That was in the newsletter, the insert.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
I think I have my insert here, this little paper here.
It's been corrected on the website,
Yes,
apparently.
yes, it
On
has.
the Downtown Section Connections website.
That's for people to look.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Just a.
thank you so much. How about you?
The planning commission did meet on January 2nd. It was a very quick meeting, less than 10 minutes, and what we did was everything that was a prelude to what happened this evening. That's all I have to share.
Thank you, sir. Anything new for next month coming up?
I'm not sure.
Nothing exciting on the front of planning?
Potentially
and zoning?
the approval of the preliminary plan for the Enclave
Okay.
subdivision
All
next to
right.
the Park Center.
All right.
But that may get pushed again until March.
Okay. Thank you.
Just so my mind isn't going
Oh,
weird
come on,
on
we
me.
all know it is.
Yes, it probably is. Kelly is also the attorney for Enclave, correct?
Yes.
For
Yes.
for the owners of Enclave.
The
Yeah,
attorney who
developer.
spoke this evening is
I
also.
know. I
Elm
don't
Street.
know if she's representing them anymore.
Well, I don't know if she still is. She was here the first time
yes.
with them.
She was here when they were talking about the developer rights and responsibilities.
Correct.
document.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
right.
just making
So that has
sure.
nothing to do with the process on the,
Right.
the
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
subdivision.
yeah.
Okay.
I just want
But
to
it
make
is the
sure.
same
Yes,
one.
it is the
person.
same woman.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
She's on the Westminster County
Circuit.
Commissioner
Yeah.
meetings too.
Yeah.
She represents that.
Schaefer and Schaefer Law is well represented all through
Yeah.
Carroll.
Councilman Dyer.
There were some outages, network comms outages during December that made Joe extremely not happy. Would be a good word.
I'm always happy.
You weren't happy then because the message I got from you was there on my naughty list, which I thought was funny. We also have a Cable Regulatory Commission this Thursday, so I'm going to bring my shillelagh and try to knock some heads. I want to see a moratorium on any planned outages in December
Forever.
forever.
Every December.
Every December, planned outages go down. You can do emergency upgrades or emergency service, but hey, it'd be a great idea. It's 4 days till Christmas. Let's
take some.
take our network down and see who screams.
Yeah.
So I have a question about that.
In the post office, of
Yes.
all places.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
there that day. And we lost
With your crutches,
business
wasn't
that
that
day
gobs of fun?
because it was one of those things where people were coming to mail packages before Christmas and other holidays that people
And they couldn't run their
and they couldn't send them because they couldn't take a credit card
Trust me, I've been there where we hear
or
a-
do postage. I'm sorry.
I've been there where we hear a screech in the back and we run in and go, we're going down. But this is, you can't fix that. But I'm talking about planned outages, should not happen in December.
I love I love the idea, and I'm thankful that you are going to present the idea, and hopefully it goes somewhere.
We've been we've been in communication with the administrator of the commission. She's very much in favor of this too. So
Excellent.
I'm hoping that we can get the lawyers to agree. But
Thank you for your foresight.
Look at that.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm looking at you. I'm like, please do it, and I didn't even have to say it. Second?
Second.
Oh, I didn't get to second anything today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This nobody has the nerve to deny this. So we are adjourned. It is 9:22.
All right, I'm sorry about pushing that. I thought we could vote on that tonight. So.